Hey, welcome to The Long Game. I'm your host, Colby Knepp. The heart of the gym and the heart of the podcast is just that, playing the long game. We're not here to crush you into shape and send you on your way. Instead, we're here to help you build something that lasts. The fitness industry has almost completely forgotten about health. Health is not a checklist. It's an interconnected matrix or system, always choosing consistency over intensity at OTA. The recovery is the work. It's the thing that makes the training possible. Hey, welcome to The Long Game. I'm your host, Colby Knepp, owner and head coach at Olde Town Athlete in Arvada, Colorado. Really glad that you're here. This show is called The Long Game, and I want to explain that right off the bat because it's more than just the name of a show. It's the entire philosophy behind why this podcast exists and why my gym, Olde Town Athlete, exists. The heart of the gym and the heart of the podcast is just that, playing the long game. That means we're not here to help you lose 15 pounds before your wedding or your vacation. We're not here to get you ready for a race in the next 4 to 8 weeks. We're not here to crush you into shape and send you on your way. Instead, we're here to help you build something that lasts. A body that works for you in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and beyond. A way of training and moving and living that doesn't require you to start over every 6 months because the last thing you tried broke you down or burned you out. That's the long game. And if you're listening to this, I have a feeling you already know you need to be playing it. So who is this show for? I'll be honest with you, just like OTA, it's not for everybody. This isn't a general fitness podcast. I'm not going to talk about marathon prep or competition training or the latest supplement stack. Instead, this show is built specifically for adults in that midlife range, 30 to 50 years old, folks who want to stay strong, stay functional, age well, get out of pain, have better energy, manage their stress, and do all this without feeling like they're starting over. If that's you, if you're somewhere in that window, you feel like something has shifted in your body over the last couple of years, and you haven't quite found the right answer for it yet, you're in the right place. This podcast is for you. And if you're a little outside that age range, but you're kind of nodding along like, okay, yeah, this is attractive, well, stick around. You're probably one of us, and you just don't know it yet. Now, this is episode 1, and I want to set the stage properly because everything we talk about going forward is going to build on what I share today. So in this episode, I'm going to take you through the full story of why OTA exists, not the polished version that I kind of want to tell. I'm going to give you the real version of how everything went down, of how my wife and I started the business and how we got to where we are today. Then I'm going to move into what I think is broken in the fitness industry and why it matters and why it should matter to you personally and how it impacts you personally. I'm going to paint a picture of exactly who we built OTA for. And I'm also going to lay out the philosophy that drives everything that we do, how I think about training, health, recovery, fitness, and coaching, and what aging is and what it means to age well. And my hope with this podcast is to give you something you can sit with, something that you can digest over a couple of days, going back and forth on your commute. So settle in. This is not surface level. There's no filler here. This is deep. Everything I'm going to share today connects directly to where you are right now and where you want to go. So let's get into it. So I want to start by telling you how OTA actually came to be. And I want to be honest with you here because the real story is probably more useful to you than like a clean and simple version. I wasn't always running a gym. I've been doing it for the past 4 years. I'm in my 5th year. And if I'm being honest, I've even had stretches that I wasn't even coaching people in my career. But for the most part, I'm a fitness coach. It's part of my identity. It's part of how I want the world to see me. And the majority of my working years have been in fitness. For a stretch of time, right around 2018, 2019, I was doing what a lot of coaches dream of when they get into the industry. I was running my own personal training business out of another local gym, one-on-one clients, hour by hour, day by day. And on the surface, it was great. I was doing what I loved. I was helping people. I was coaching. I got to spend my time inside a gym and wear gym clothes all day. I mean, like, what's not to like? It was a really awesome situation. But here's what was actually happening underneath all of that. I owned a job. I didn't own a business. And there's a big difference between those two things that I didn't fully appreciate until I was deep in it. You see, I started the business, started personal training in my personal training business to have a business. But I'll tell you right now, when you own a job, especially a service-based job like that, everything runs through you. Every dollar earned, every session delivered, every client relationship, it all depended on me showing up, being present, being energized, and being available, which sounds fine until you realize what it actually costs. My weeks look like this: post on social media, contact old clients, do whatever I possibly could to sell training packages, then fulfill those training packages. When I wasn't selling, I was coaching. When I wasn't coaching, I was selling. And when I wasn't doing either one, which really honestly wasn't often, I was thinking about how I needed to be doing one or the other. There was no off switch. That took me a while to learn how to actually find that off switch. There was no separation between the business and my life because they were basically the same thing. And the income, man, the income was a roller coaster. Good month, slow month, big month, slow month. And that was the worst part about the entire process. The anxiety that lives in the good months, knowing that a slow one is probably coming. This is a phase of business that most solopreneurs or service providers never really get past. When you're selling, you're not delivering. And when you're delivering, you're not selling. And it's a trap. It's really hard to enjoy the upswing because you're already worried about the downswing. It's a really, really hard way to live. The quality of life of this life that I chose really started to wear on me too. Taking time off was almost impossible. Family vacations, that wasn't even a question. Taking extended time away meant no training sessions. Not delivering those sessions meant no income coming in. And really what this meant was a week away to rest and recover really just felt like a week of getting behind and feeling extremely stressed. To make matters worse, getting sick just wasn't even an option. I couldn't be out for a few days without it costing me real money and real momentum in our growth and in the business. And the truth is, I almost killed all of it. I eventually started to resent the very thing I built because it wouldn't let me breathe. I had no time and no space to recover. Making matters worse or better, had a young family at the time to provide for, and so it was just a really challenging and stressful time. I remember hitting a point where I sat down and just thought, this cannot be it. This is not what I signed up for. There has got to be a better way to do this. Not just for me, but for the people that I'm trying to help. Because the model I was in wasn't letting me help as many people as I knew I could. And it wasn't letting me go as deep as I wanted to with the people that I was already working with. So I started asking a different question. Instead of how do I get more clients, I started asking, how do I serve more people without it all running through me 1 hour at a time? And the answer, when I kind of broke it down, it's actually really simple. I could train more than one person at a time. Now, I know that sounds obvious. Here we are, OTA is crushing and the gym's growing crazy. But at the time, small group training really wasn't a thing. It was one of two options. It was large group, 20 plus people with one coach, or one-on-one private training. So group training isn't a new idea. But the way I came at it wasn't how do I run big group fitness? I wasn't trying to maximize that. It was more like, what if I took the quality and the intentionality of one-on-one coaching, what I was already doing, and I applied it to like 2 or 3 people an hour instead of one? What if people got super high quality, personalized programming, real coaching, real progression, and long-term principle principally based progression, long-term planning, just alongside a few other people instead of just doing it completely alone, one-on-one. So I started asking my existing clients about it, and the response was positive. Shout out to those of you who put up with me for many months while I was thinking about making this move in the early days. And after many months of thinking about it, my wife, Ashley, and I decided that we're going to do it. She didn't even bat an eye. We listed our townhouse for sale, the very first property that we ever owned, the house that we raised our children in. And man, this was a hot real estate market, and that thing sold within, I think, a weekend. It was really crazy. And now, honestly, the one vacation we took was the weekend that everybody was coming to look at our townhouse to buy it. And so there we were. Money, we had some cash, we had some startup capital, so money wasn't a barrier. I had the skills, I had the clientele, so that was an opportunity. And I started looking for a lease. I got denied multiple times, and eventually I landed at 5720 Lamar Street, where the gym is now. And as far as the training goes, it worked way better than I could have ever imagined. Not without its hiccups and learning curve, of course, but for the majority of folks, a personalized program in a private setting, it just hits right. It just works. Not because the coaching was more efficient, although it was. We now do classes of 6 clients to 1 coach. Very efficient. But because of what happens between the people in the room. There was something in training alongside other people who are dealing with the same stuff you're dealing with. Same phase of life, same age, same nagging joint pain and injuries, same frustration with trying to figure all of this out. And these people get it without you having to explain it. What I found was really cool. The accountability was just kind of baked in to the model. The energy in the room was different. People started showing up not just for themselves, although that's a big one, but because they knew someone else was going to be there. And that changes things. That changes the whole dynamic of what it was. And OTA grew out of that. Not from a big business plan. I did not have one when I started the business. I had some notes written in a journal, like the economics and the scale and frankly, the layout of the gym and the equipment I was more interested in. I didn't have a marketing strategy. It grew because we were doing something that actually worked for a specific group of people. And those people got great results. They told other people, and it has just kind of grown from there. When people refer their friends, number one, it's like the biggest, it's the biggest thank you that we could receive as coaches is when people invite other people into it. Because something real is happening for them. That is just a direct correlation to being a high quality coach. And you can't fake that. You can't force that. That just comes from being a professional, being really good at what you do. And that's how we've grown. And as it grew, I got clearer and clearer on who we were actually built for. I think by this point, we've gone through probably 500 people. In the gym, as of today, is around 135 people strong. So think about the 300 some folks that have come through and who are not a great fit. It was a specific type of person. It was a specific type of person, adult, 35 and up, who had tried a bunch of stuff and hadn't found the right fit. People who had real lives, capital R, capital L, real demands, and real physical histories. People who were smart and motivated, but had been let down enough times that their confidence was a little fragile. People who needed something different, not just a different workout, but an entirely different approach. And the more I leaned into serving that person and learning about that person specifically, even though, maybe I share some of those traits now, but I was part of the problem in the early years. I'll talk about this more in the next section. When I focused on this person, our coaching got sharper. Our programming got more intentional. The environment and the culture became exactly what it needed to be for that group of people. And that's what OTA is today. It's not an accident. It's not a pivot from something else entirely. It's what happens when you get honest about who you can actually help, and then you build everything around that person. So if you're part of the OTA story and you're listening to this, thank you sincerely. It really means the world to me that I can do this. And I'm really proud of that. And we're still building it. And what we're hoping to do is change the industry, the way that adults in this age range get served by the fitness industry at large. That's the mission. That's what gets me up in the morning. And that's why this podcast exists, because the gym can only reach so many people. And it's such an awesome environment and such a great culture to walk into every day. But a conversation, a real one about real things, that can go a lot further. So that's what we're going to do here with the podcast every week or every other week. All right, I want to shift gears and talk about the fitness industry for a minute. And I want to be fair here. I'm not going to sit here and trash everything that exists. There are definitely good gyms, good coaches, good programs out there. That's totally real. But there is something fundamentally broken about the way the industry operates at large. And it affects you directly. So I think it's worth naming it and just spending a little bit of time on this first episode. Here's the thing that bothers me the most, and I'll just say it straight. The fitness industry has almost completely forgotten about health. Think about what dominates the conversation right now. It's things like optimization, performance, competition, intensity, transformation, leaderboards, before and afters. The content that gets the most attention, the gyms that get the most press, the programs that sell the most copies, they're almost all built around pushing harder, going faster, and doing more. There's almost like it's like this underlying assumption baked into the entire industry that the goal of participating in fitness is to perform at a higher level, to compete, to crush something. And look, for some people, that's exactly right. I was there too. I totally get it. If you're training for a specific athletic event, if competition is your thing, and if you genuinely love that environment and that lifestyle, there are so many great options for you. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying there is a massive demographic of folks who don't vibe with any of that. And they've been entirely left behind by the industry. And that's a huge problem. So who are these people? They're the 45-year-old who works a demanding job, comes home to a young family, hasn't slept more than 6 hours a night in years, and just wants to feel stronger, feel better in their body, and feel more capable in their daily life. It's the woman in her early 50s who's navigating real hormonal changes and has been told by basically everyone, doctors, trainers, influencers, and the internet, to just eat less and move more, as if that's an answer. There's the guy who used to play college sports, who misses feeling athletic in his body, who's been carrying a shoulder injury for 2 years and is genuinely afraid that if he walks into a gym, he's going to make it worse. These people are everywhere. They are the majority. And most of the fitness industry is not speaking to them, not programming for them, not marketing to them. And honestly, they're not even thinking about them. So what happens to these people? They try CrossFit because their neighbor told them it would get them in shape fast. And they're right, it probably will. And maybe they do okay for a couple of months and then something hurts and then they stop. Maybe they sign up for Orange Theory because someone in their Bible study told them the energy is good and the music is loud and it feels like you're doing something. And let's be honest, cardio and high intensity music feels good. It's fun. And they burn a lot of calories, but nothing really changes in terms of their strength or their stress management or how they feel. And eventually that novelty wears off. Or maybe they get a Peloton or a home gym and they ride it hard for a while or they use their equipment for a season and then it turns into a very expensive clothing rack. I've heard this story before. And let me knock my own career for a second. Maybe they hire a personal trainer and the trainer is enthusiastic, which is great. But the trainer is also 24 years old and has no real framework for working with a 48-year-old body that has a history and some wear and tear on it. So they just kind of like work out together. The trainer counts some reps. The client sweats. Nothing is really assessed. Nothing is really progressed. And after a few months, the client feels like they spent a lot of money to not really get anywhere. And look, none of these things are villains, nor are they trying to do harm. That is full stop, 100% true. They're just not built for the average person. And the problem is that this person keeps trying these solutions anyways because they're the most visible options. And the problem is that this person keeps trying them anyway because they're the most visible options. And you already know what happens. They keep getting the same result. Either they get injured, they get burned out, or they just get quietly disappointed and they restart back at square one. That cycle. Try something new, get hurt, burn out, quit, feel guilty, try something else. That's one of the most common experiences for adults in this age range. And I want to say that the industry at large sells you the feeling of doing something because feeling like you're doing something is better than doing nothing. And the fitness industry created this. I don't think it was intentional, but it created it by designing almost everything around a different person and then marketing it to everyone. It's for the 20-something fitness enthusiasts. That was me in my 20s, and I'm here telling you that's not real life as you age. On this note, I want to talk about the information problem for a second because it makes all of this worse. We live in this bizarre moment in human civilization where there is more free information about health and fitness and strength training and mobility and nutrition, more of that information available than at any point in human history. And people are more confused about it than ever. You've got podcasts going deep on longevity science. You've got Instagram Reels telling you everything you thought you knew about nutrition is wrong. You've got one expert saying lift heavy. You've got another expert saying lift light, and another saying you shouldn't be lifting at all. And you've got zone 2 cardio, and you've got VO2 max, and you've got high intensity intervals and glucose monitoring and stress tracking and cold plunging and about 47 other things that are all apparently essential if you want to be healthy. And look, some of that information is genuinely excellent. If I'm being honest, my favorite part about being in this industry is that there is so much new, exciting changes coming out, learning about our body. I listen to a lot of it. I try to filter and figure out what works. I respect the people that are putting this stuff out. But here's what happens when you flood smart, busy, already overwhelmed adults with that volume of information. It's paralysis. They don't know what to prioritize. They don't know what applies to them specifically. They don't know even where to start. And when you don't know where to start, the easiest thing to do is nothing, or to start something random and just kind of hope for the best. The information overload is not helping anyone. It's giving them reasons to feel like they're behind, more things to feel guilty about not doing, and less clarity on what actually matters, the signal, the thing they should pay attention to. And what actually matters? Honestly, it's just not that complicated. It's just been buried under so much noise that it's become harder to see. It's things like strength training, aerobic work, daily movement, managing your recovery, getting quality sleep, eating adequate protein, not catastrophizing every single workout, not trying to kill yourself every single time you train. And that's most of it. These are the fundamentals, and they haven't changed. They just don't go viral. They're not cool. They're not sexy. But I'm telling you, this is what works. Here's the last piece of this that I want to name because I think it's the most damaging thing about the industry. And it happens quietly without anyone really meaning to do it. The fitness industry makes people feel like there's something wrong with them when the thing doesn't work. You tried CrossFit and you got hurt? Oh, you probably pushed too hard. You signed up for that program and quit after a few weeks? Well, you definitely didn't have enough self-discipline. You've been struggling with your weight for years? Well, you just need more willpower. See, the implication here, sometimes stated, usually not, is that the program is fine and that the problem is you. And that is so ass backwards. It does real damage to real people. When someone in their mid-40s tries something that wasn't designed for them, the context of their body, their recovery, their stress, their life, and it doesn't account for any of this, the fact that they are stressed out, they don't sleep, and they haven't trained consistently in 3 years, and then that thing doesn't work, or worse yet, they get injured, the failure isn't theirs. The failure is a system that didn't bother to meet them where they actually are. And I'll tell you what, OTA exists because I got tired of watching that happen. I got tired of seeing adults who genuinely wanted to take care of themselves get chewed up by an industry that wasn't built for them. And I wanted to build something that actually was. And that's what we're doing at OTA. That's what this podcast is part of. Changing that conversation, challenging that narrative, one episode at a time. Okay, so let's talk about who I actually built the gym for. Because everything I just said about the industry, the gap, the way it is, the people being left behind, the cycle of trying and quitting and feeling bad about it, that all points to a very specific person. And I want to describe that person in detail because if you're listening to this, there's a good chance I'm describing you. We work with adults between roughly 35 and 55, sometimes older. Fitness adjacent, not fitness obsessed. That's our lane. That's who fills our gym. That's who we program for. That's who our entire coaching philosophy and methodology is built around. Not because we don't care about anyone outside that range. We definitely do, and we can certainly help. But because we've learned that when you try to serve everyone, you end up serving no one. So I made a choice to go deep on this group specifically. And that focus is what makes us great at what we do. So let's talk about this person. They're a professional. They've built something real, like a career, maybe a business, a family, a life. They're often family-oriented. It's very important to them to be engaged and functional and healthy as role models for their kids or as caretakers for their parents. In my experience, they're highly competent. They're intelligent. They're so disciplined, and they work extremely hard. They're used to being good at things. They make so many decisions every single day. They solve problems, and they figure stuff out. These are truly intelligent people. They are totally capable. They are totally incredible. And then they walk into fitness, and suddenly they feel completely lost because they walk into an environment and a culture that is totally foreign and wasn't built for them. The language isn't aimed at them. The marketing isn't aimed at them. And nobody seems to be talking right to their exact situation. So this person who is genuinely capable and incredible in every other area of their life ends up feeling like a total beginner in the worst way possible. Not the kind of beginner who's excited and fresh, kind of like a jujitsu white belt, but the kind who feels behind, out of place, insecure, or embarrassed. I'm telling you right now, that feeling is extremely real. And it's not their fault. It's a design problem. It's the industry at large. There's nothing wrong with the individuals. It's the environment that they're in. So let me talk about their physical reality. And this is just based on observation, doing well over 500 one-on-one conversations and consultations at this point. By the time somebody lands at my gym, they've usually got a history. A shoulder that's been complaining for a couple of years, a low back that tightens up if they sit too long or maybe if they lift the wrong way, hips that feel like they belong to someone 20 years older, and maybe a knee or two that's been on the list for a while. And often these things aren't catastrophic necessarily, although we've definitely had some really crazy cases in the 4 years we've been doing this. It's just kind of like the accumulation of years of doing life, sitting at a desk, building a career, carrying kids, old sports injuries that never really fully resolved, sleeping wrong one night. I mean, that's when you know you're pushing 30 or 40 when you wake up and your neck won't move just because you slept weird. That's a real eye-opening moment. The general wear that comes from being a human being in a demanding world for 4 or 5 decades of living. What most places do with that history is either just ignore it entirely. They just hand you a program, and if they even do that, and hope for the best, or they treat it as a reason you can't do things. And neither of those is right. Ignoring it is only going to get you hurt again in the future. Overprotecting it is going to keep you stuck. It needs to be trained. It needs to be developed. And so what we do is we take it serious. We factor it in from day one. We build around it intelligently because almost everything in terms of a person's body and physiology can be trained. Almost everything can be improved. There's obviously certain contexts and situations like, real severe injuries that cannot, but beyond the physical stuff, there's the energy piece. And this one I hear about constantly. The 3 p.m. crash that didn't used to happen. The feeling of waking up and not really feeling totally rested and recovered even after a full night of sleep. The sense that your recovery just isn't what it used to be. That a hard workout used to feel good the next day, and now it takes 2 or 3 or 4 days just to get back to like feeling normal. That's real. And that's so common for this age range, and it matters for how we train people. It's very important. There's also the weight piece, body weight. And I want to be careful here because I don't want this to sound like reductive, but it's real and people talk about it. So I just want to address it directly. A lot of people in this range feels like their body composition has been slowly shifting on them and they can't figure out why because they're not doing anything dramatically different than they used to. The answer to that is actually pretty straightforward, and we'll get into this in future episodes. But the short version is that muscle mass, metabolism, and hormones all change as we age. And if your training and recovery habits and your lifestyle aren't accounting for these changes, you're going to feel like you're fighting a losing battle because you kind of are if you're unwilling to acknowledge the reality of aging. Now, here's the part I really want you to hear. Because all of that, the injuries, the fatigue, the body composition stuff, that's almost never actually what's keeping people up at night. That's like surface level, surface layer. What's really at stake is bigger than that. It's independence. It's capability. It's autonomy. It's being able to do the things that make your life feel like your life. Going on the ski trip, keeping up with your kids on a hike, training for an event or a race, not being the person who has to sit out because their knees can't handle it, not becoming your parents, watching them lose mobility and strength and autonomy earlier than they should have, and knowing in the back of your mind that you're on a similar trajectory if something doesn't change. I've been blessed with 2 awesome role models in my parents in terms of health and activity. And so, mom and dad, I'm not talking about you. So that's actually what's driving people through our door. It's not vanity. It's not a number on a scale. It's fear. Quiet, specific, totally reasonable fear about what the next 20 years will look like if nothing changes. And alongside that fear, it's a real desire, a desire to feel strong again, to feel capable, athletic in the way that actually matters, which isn't about performance or competition, although, that stuff is still fun. It's about moving through the world with confidence and with ease. The small wins that matter to this person, and I love these because they're so honest, and this is really what lights me up. Things like no pain putting luggage in the overhead bin, getting through a hike without stopping, skiing a full day here in the mountains in Colorado and feeling fine the next morning, picking up their kids without their back seizing up, lifting heavier than they did last month and actually noticing it, true progressive overload training, sleeping through the night. These are the things people tell us about when something is working. Not their 1 rep max, not their race time. Those are all cool, and I love hearing those. Keep telling me about that. But these real daily life quality markers that tell you whether your body is actually serving you or not. That's what I love hearing because that's real. And that matters more than what we're doing inside of a gym in a strength training environment. And the reason they haven't found the right place yet, and most of the time they've looked and they've tried things, it's that most places aren't paying attention to any of that. They're running programs designed for a different goal, a different person, and an entirely different frame of success. And this person walks in, they do their best, doesn't really quite fit, and eventually they walk out feeling like the problem was them. I'm here to tell you it's not you. It never was. It's just that nobody built the right thing for you. Well, we did. That's OTA. And if you recognize yourself in any of what I just described, the history, the frustration, the fear underneath it, the desire to finally get this right, then I want you to know that you are exactly who we had in mind when we built this place. All right, let's shift gears. I want to get into how we actually think about this stuff because OTA isn't just a gym with like an older demographic. I mean, although we are, it's an entirely different philosophy about what health and fitness actually are and how it works in real life. And I think if you understand how we think, not just what we do, but like why we do what we do, everything else is going to make a lot more sense. So let me start with what I think is the most important idea I can share with you. And it's this: health is a system, not a collection of habits. What I mean by this is most people approach their health like a checklist. I need to exercise. I need to eat better. I need to sleep more. I need to drink more water. I need to drink less booze. I need to manage my stress. And they treat each one of these items like separate items on a list, something to add, something to fix, something to optimize individually. And here's where it goes wrong. When you treat your health like a checklist, you approach every problem by adding something. Not sleeping well? Add a supplement. If you're feeling sluggish, add more workouts. Weight creeping up? Add more restriction. More, add. But a system doesn't work that way. In a system, everything is connected. Your sleep impacts your recovery. Your recovery impacts your ability to train. Your training affects your stress hormones. Your stress hormones affect your sleep. Your nutrition affects your energy. Your energy affects how you show up day to day. Your workouts affect how you feel. How you feel impacts how you feel emotionally, and how you feel emotionally affects every decision you make about food, movement, and rest. Pull on one of these threads and the entire thing moves. There are upstream and downstream impacts in a health system. It's not a checklist. It's an interconnected matrix or system. Once you understand that it's a system, you start to understand something really important. Adding stress, adding more things, more intensity, more volume to a broken system often makes things worse instead of making it better. This is the thing I see go wrong constantly, especially in the demographic I'm talking about, our members and people who come to OTA. And it breaks my heart a little bit every single time. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Someone decides they're going to get serious about their health. They have a conversation with their doctor, or maybe it's a birthday, or maybe they see a photo of themselves. Something motivates them to take their health serious. They're motivated and they mean it and they want to change. So like any well-meaning, well-intentioned adult, they go all in. They sign up for the gym. They overhaul their diet and they start getting up at 5 a.m. Maybe they cut out alcohol. Maybe they download the sleep tracking app or get a recovery device. The thing is, they do all of these things at once, all from zero, cold turkey, and do a completely different life. And then 2 or 3 or maybe 4 weeks later, they're totally exhausted. They're irritable, joints hurt. Their sleep is actually worse because the new workout schedule is throwing them off their rhythm. And they feel like a failure because they couldn't sustain the thing they built when really the problem wasn't their discipline. The problem was they added a massive amount of additional stress to a system that was already under pressure, and they expected it to thrive. In our younger years, maybe we can get away with that. But I'm telling you, in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, our systems need some support. Our systems need some support first, recovery first, a foundation first, and then built on top of that foundation, the training. Introduced gradually, intelligently, in a way that their system can absorb, adapt to, and integrate. That's how we think at OTA. We're not in the business of adding more until we understand that the system can handle more. This is the beauty of progressive overload strength training. It literally is doing just a little bit, incrementally more than you did previously. And when people get in that rhythm of every session, every week, getting a little bit stronger, it's incredible to watch the gains that happen over longer time horizons. And at OTA, this all starts in an assessment, which I'll get into in the next section. I'll talk about how we do things. Um, but now I want to talk about a really important distinction here, which is training age versus calendar age, because I think this will be really helpful for a lot of people. Your calendar age or your biological age is the number on your driver's license, 44, 51, 28, whatever it is. Your training age is something completely different. It's essentially how long you've been training and what your brain, your nervous system, your skeleton, and your muscles have been exposed to. What kind of stress have they been exposed to? And here's why this matters. Two people can walk into the door at OTA and be the exact same biological age, and they can have a completely different training age. A 50-year-old who has been strength training consistently for 15 years has a very different body, a very different nervous system, and a very different capacity, and a very different starting point than a same 50-year-old who hasn't ever trained ever. Programming for them the same way, i.e. giving them the same workout, would be totally absurd. But most gyms, they don't make this distinction. Most programs don't even acknowledge that this is a biological reality. They see the number and they make assumptions. We don't do that. When someone comes into OTA, we want to know exactly where they are, not where they think they should be based on their age or their experience, not where they used to be back when they were playing sports or at their fighting weight or whatever. We want to know where they are right now, because that's the only honest starting point that actually matters. And starting somewhere honest is the only way to build something real. This also connects to something I feel strongly about, which is that meeting someone where they are is not lowering the bar. I want to push back on that idea because I hear it sometimes, especially from younger coaches, maybe people who haven't gone through like life yet. The suggestion that scaling things back or starting really conservatively is somehow not enough, or somehow settling, or that it's not real training. And I cannot tell you how wrong that is. To me, meeting a person where they are, their recovery, their capacity, their training age, what they're ready for, to me, this is the absolute best expression of what a personal trainer should aspire to be. It's personal. Starting where you actually are and progressing from there intelligently is the most demanding thing you can ask of a coach. It's hard. It requires restraint. It requires long-term thinking. It requires attention and genuine, thoughtful program design rather than just like applying the same template or workout of the day to everybody. And it's really hard to do well, I'll be honest. It's the only approach that produces real, sustainable, long-term results for real people who are living real life. Which brings me to the philosophy piece I'm probably most passionate about, the long game mindset, hence the name of the podcast. Here's what I mean by it. Our culture has a deeply dysfunctional relationship with health and fitness timelines. Everything is framed as short-term intervention. 6-week challenge, 12-week transformation, 30-day reset, 7-day fast. The implicit message in all of this is that fitness is something, and health to an extent, is something that you do for a period of time, you get a result, and then you're done. And instinctively and intuitively, we all know this. I'm not telling you something new, but that's not how health and biology and adaptation works. Health is not a destination. It's an ongoing practice. It's a daily existence. And the most important variable in that practice, by a massive margin, it's not intensity. It's not the perfect program. It's not the optimal nutrition protocol or recovery sequence. It's consistency of the fundamentals applied over time. That's it. Consistency over time of the fundamentals is the entire game. Show up, do the work, recover, and repeat. Not perfectly, not without interruption. Life happens, travel, illness, stress, family stuff, all of it. But consistently enough, over long enough, that the accumulated effect compounds into something real and something noticeable. And here's the thing about consistency that most people underestimate. You cannot sustain intensity long enough for it to compound into truly meaningful changes. You can be intense for 8 weeks. You can be intense for 16 weeks if you're really motivated, but you can't be intense for 20 years. I have never seen an NFL athlete last more than a couple decades. I have never seen a high level, performance oriented individual last multiple decades. Intensity burns people out, full stop. Consistency of the fundamentals does not. So we are always choosing consistency over intensity at OTA. Doesn't mean the workouts we do aren't intense. It doesn't mean we're scared of intensity. It means that we know when to dose it and when somebody's stress and capacity can absorb it and integrate it and benefit from it. We get in it, we do it for multiple weeks, and we get back to the stuff that works for long term. The workout that you can do today, recover from by tomorrow, and show up for again in 2 days, that is worth infinitely more than the workout that wrecks you for a week or two and breaks the streak. This is off script, but I want to tell you this story. When I first got into CrossFit, the whole gist of the thing was functional fitness, ready for anything. And I remember my first 2 weeks, my legs were so sore, I couldn't sit on a toilet. I couldn't walk up steps. I was so broken. And I laughed because I loved the intensity. I loved how it made me feel, but I was so non-functional outside of the gym. All right, back on point. A slightly less impressive session than you actually do is worth more than the perfect session that you skip because you're not feeling up to it. I'm telling you again, good enough, done consistently, beats perfect, done sporadically. Every single time. I know this because walk into my gym and look at the wall on the back. There were well over 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 sessions accounted for on our milestone wall. And I know this probably sounds too simple and it's not sexy or fun or entertaining. It's probably not what you want to hear, but I'm telling you, as somebody who does this for a living and observes it every single day, this is it. Most people don't actually live it at all. They live by the all or nothing version. Either they're fully committed and they're doing everything exactly right, or they've fallen off the wagon entirely and they're like full on in spiral mode. There's no middle ground. And the lack of middle ground is exactly what keeps them stuck. We need the middle ground. We need buffer. We need margin. We try to make the sustainable version feel like enough because it is enough. It's more than enough. It's actually everything. On that, I want to talk about recovery because I think this might be the most undervalued, underrated, and misunderstood variable in all of health and fitness. And it connects directly to everything I've been saying. Most people think of recovery as what you do after the work. You train, you recover, you train again. And that's totally true. Recovery is the passive part, the rest, the sleep, the foam rolling, the stuff you do, you can train tomorrow. That's the common mental model. I want to maybe offer you a new perspective. Recovery isn't what you do after the work. Maybe in our teens and 20s when there's not a ton of life stress and we don't have a lot of responsibilities in our lives, I'm going to offer to you that in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, as we age, it becomes more important. The recovery is the work. It's the thing that makes the training possible. Think about it this way. When you train, when you actually stress your body in the gym, you do a challenging enough workout that there's a little bit of a stress response, you break down some tissue, you get an endocrine response, you're not actually getting stronger in that session. The workout is the stimulus, it's the input. You get stronger during the recovery. That's when the adaptation happens. That's when the muscle is built, the nervous system repairs and recovers, your aerobic system repairs and recovers, and your capacity increases over time. The training session is just the signal. The recovery is where the results and the progress actually lives. So if your recovery is less than what it could be, meaning if you're not getting adequate sleep, if your stress levels are just unchecked through the roof, acute high stress, you're just dealing with fires all day, every day. If you're undernourished, or even if you're overnourished, you're eating too little or too much. If you're pushing through fatigue without giving your brain and your body downtime. If you were chronically having your awareness engaged on a device and you're not ever having time for your nervous system to chill, then you're sending signals to your body that it can't respond to properly. You're doing the work, but you're leaving 90% of the benefit on the table. And worse than that, you're accumulating a deficit, a recovery deficit. And here's the brutal truth about modern life. Most of the people we work with are already carrying a significant recovery deficit before they ever walk through our door. The demands of their life, the workload, the family load, the emotional load, the sleep deprivation, the low-grade chronic stress that just hums along in the background of everything in the modern world, that's already a huge tax on the system. They're already running behind on recovery. People come into OTA at what I say less than zero. They're at a deficit. They're negative zero when they walk through our doors. And then they decide they want to add intense training on top of that, which if you think about health as a system, that's just adding more stress to a system that's already struggling to recover from the baseline stress that it has. That is not a recipe for progress. That's a recipe for breakdown. And this is why the fitness industry's answer of just push harder, be more disciplined, want it more, it's so damaging for this population specifically. They don't need more intensity. They need a smarter approach that accounts for the full picture of their life, not just what happens in the gym for an hour, but the other 23 hours. So at OTA, we take recovery seriously as a training variable, not as an afterthought. We want to know how you're sleeping. We want to know what your stress looks like. We want to know what your week looks like before we design you a plan, because the program has to fit into your life. You don't have to fit your life around your program. That's the philosophy. Health is a system, training age over calendar age, consistency over intensity, recovery and aerobic work as the foundation, not a footnote. It sounds different from most gym talks about, because it is different and it works. Okay, so I've talked a lot about philosophy, about how we think, about what we believe, and why we built OTA the way we built it. And I think that foundation is really important, and thanks for sticking with me. I think you need to understand the why before the what will make any sense, because it's so different than anything else out there. But let me get concrete now, because at some point you're probably thinking, okay, Colby, cool. That all sounds good, but what does this actually look like? What happens when someone comes to the gym? Well, if you're an OTA member listening to this, you already know. If you're not, let me tell you about what we do day to day that's different from everywhere else. Fair question? Let me address it. Let's dive right into this. The first thing, this is a non-negotiable for us at OTA. Everybody who starts training at OTA goes through an assessment. And that assessment is deep. There's a consultation. There's a joint mobility assessment. We look at body composition. We look at aerobic fitness. We introduce specific joint mobility exercises. We introduce strength training slowly, individually. And we get to know exactly where somebody is before they jump into their actual training program. And maybe that sounds simple, maybe even obvious. I hope that that is now much more common in the fitness industry. But I want to tell you, at least from my experience, how rare it actually is, because most gyms don't do this. Most gyms, they're going to sign you up, maybe hand you a class schedule, and you get to pick the days, and they're going to point you to the locker room and say, good luck, let me know if you need anything. Maybe there's an intro class. Maybe someone shows you where the equipment is, and then you're definitely kind of on your own to figure out whether what's happening in the room is right for your body, your history, and your situation. Remember what I said earlier about this group. It's not that they're not intelligent. It's not that they don't know. It's that this context and this environment was not built for them. This is built for 20-somethings who have a huge margin for error, who can just absorb stress and get up and do it again. We're 30, 40, 50, 60, going through life and stress and work and kids. We don't have that luxury. So at OTA, we don't do that. Before you do a single workout at my gym, we sit down with you. We have a real conversation. We ask about your history, not just your fitness history, but your injury history, your medical history, the stuff that's been limiting you or bothering you. We ask about your life, your stress, your sleep, your schedule, your rhythm, what your week actually looks like. Not the perfect week, but what actually happens. We ask about your goals, not just like lose weight and get in better shape, but what specifically you want to be able to do, what's been missing, and what would make you feel like this is working. What does success look like? And then we look at how you move. We go through a movement screen, joint mobility, basic movement patterns, how your body is functioning right now. Not to judge it, obviously, but to find everything that might be a limiter for you so that we can address it. To understand the starting point honestly so that we can build a plan that honors that context instead of some like imaginary person. That intake process does a few things. Obviously, it gives us the information we need to coach you well, but it also does something for you. And I've heard this from so many members over the years. It makes you feel like someone is actually paying attention to you, like you're not just another body coming through the door. Like the place you're about to trust with your physical health, which might be the most important thing we have, actually took the time to understand your specific situation before asking anything of you. And that's important. I'm really proud of that. It sets the tone for everything that follows down the road. And so let me share a little bit about what training looks like at OTA after that. We are a small group training gym, which means that very rarely will people do a one-on-one training program, maybe 15% of our clients. And so when you do that, you're one-on-one with a coach. And if you do group classes, you're not in a class of 30 people. You're in a small group, 6 at the most, including you. So 5 plus you plus 5 friends with a coach who is present, paying attention, actively coaching, not just running the clock, not just picking the playlist, not just calling out random exercises. We're watching how you move. We're cueing you when something's off or incorrect or could be improved. We're adjusting your program in real time when something just isn't working for you that day. And that's important. I'm really proud of this. I cut my teeth in the large group model, and there's a lot of benefits there. But in large group, the entirety of it is managing the room, keeping the energy up, keeping the group together, making sure the general flow of the session works from station to station to station. It's more logistics than it is coaching, in my opinion. There's not a lot of capacity left over to notice that you're compensating on your left side because your hip is not feeling right. In a small group with a real coach, that's exactly what gets noticed. And that's exactly what gets addressed. The programming at OTA is built around strength training as our form of peak expression. I want you to imagine that strength training is probably one of the most beneficial and stressful things you could do to your body. And it's not because I think strength training is the only thing that matters. There's definitely more to the picture: aerobic conditioning, joint mobility, mindfulness, all these other things. But because strength training is the single most important physical investment you can make as an aging adult. It's the thing that protects your joints. It maintains your bone density. It keeps your metabolism functioning, preserves your muscle mass, and gives you the physical capacity to do everything else you want to do. There is no other fitness program in the world that can make the claim that strength training alone can make. If you only had time to do one thing, I would recommend strength training. So we make sure we do it right. But here's how we do it differently than a lot of strength-focused gyms. We don't have an ego about the movements. We're not attached to the idea that everyone needs to back squat or deadlift, or they have to do it in a specific way or hit certain benchmarks on certain lifts. We don't give a crap about any of that. What we care about is that you are moving well, you're progressing over time, and you are building real strength in a way that your body can handle and benefit from, not just in the gym, but outside the gym. If that means we modify something for your shoulder, or we offer some sort of mobility intervention for your hips or your knees, then we do it. If that means we start you lighter than you think you should start, we start you lighter. Pride has no place. Pride has no place in this process. Results do. Progression is what we're after. And that progression piece, this is something I want to be really specific about because it's one of the things that actually separates good coaching from like mediocre coaching. Progression isn't just adding weight to the bar, although that's part of it. At OTA, progression is a thoughtful, planned process of increasing the demand on your body in a way that it can adapt to over time that is right on the edge of your capabilities. It usually looks like more weight. It might be more training volume. It might be a more challenging movement variation in terms of exercise selection. It might be shorter rest periods. It might be more conditioning. There are a lot of variables, and good programming manages all of them intelligently. What it never is at my gym is random. There's always a reason. There's always a plan. I'm going to wrap up with this. I want to talk about the environment and the culture at OTA. OTA is not a big box gym. We don't have 100 pieces of cardio equipment and a smoothie bar and a sauna and a basketball court. We have a well-equipped strength training floor, excellent coaching, and an incredible group of people who are all there for the same reason. What that means practically is that when you walk in, you're going to be surrounded by people your age, people who are dealing with the same stuff you're dealing with, people who have the same aches, the same questions, the same complicated relationship with the idea of being in a gym at this point in their life. And there is something enormously powerful about that because it removes the intimidation factor completely. We don't have mirrors in the gym. You're not the oldest person in the room, typically. You're not the least fit person in the room, typically. You're not being lapped by 23-year-olds who just make the whole thing look effortless. You are with your people, and your people are going through it with you. And I hear this from our members all the time, especially people who are hesitant about joining, who maybe had to work up the courage to come in for a consult. And almost universally, within a few weeks, they say some version of this. I didn't realize how much it would matter to train with people who are like me. The community piece surprised me. The fact that they look forward to coming to work out surprised them. And that's not an accident. It's what happens when you put the right people in a room together and give them something real to work towards. The coaching staff here, myself, Coach Rob, Coach Shannon, Coach Mo, Coach Landon, Coach Faith, we all bring something different to the floor. Rob has a depth of technical knowledge that is like genuinely rare for somebody with 6 or 7 years experience, 8 years experience. Shannon brings an energy and relatability that makes people feel immediately comfortable, especially people who are newer to this or maybe who've had a bad experience somewhere else. I try to hold the whole thing together philosophically, making sure that everything we do connects back to the mission, that the programming is sound, the vibe is the same, the classes are ran similarly, and that all the people are being seen and taken care of. We're a real team. And I think that shows up in the experience people have at OTA. It's not a franchise model where the playbook is the same everywhere and we're just like running a version of a program. It's a team of coaches who genuinely care about being awesome at our job, who talk to each other, who problem solve behind the scenes for one another, who know your name and your history and what you're working through, and who show up every day trying to do right by the people who trust us with the thing that matters, their health. So that's what training at OTA actually is. And that's really what I want you to walk into. All right, that's episode 1. I just want to take a second before I let you go to recap what we covered because we went deep and I wanted to land. We talked about where OTA came from, the real version, the hamster wheel of owning a job instead of a business, the pivot to small group training and how the gym grew out of doing the right thing for the right people and just letting that be good enough. We talked about what's broken in the fitness industry, how it forgot about health in favor of performance and intensity and competition, how the information overload is making things worse instead of better, and how the pattern of trying things that weren't built for you and feeling like the failure is yours, well, that cycle ends here. We talked about who OTA is actually built for, the 35 to 55-year-old adult with a history and a life and a quiet fear about what the next 20 years is going to look like, the person who wants to feel strong and capable and confident and independent not just for a race, although maybe that's what they're doing, but just for like how they go about their life. We talked about the philosophy, health as a system, training age versus calendar age, consistency over intensity, recovery as the foundation. And we talked about what we actually do, the OTA version of fitness, the assessment, the small group coaching model, the programming built around strength and capacity and recovery, the environment, the team, and the culture. That's the foundation. Everything we talk about going forward is going to build on this. And so here's what's coming next in the next episode. And I really hope that episode 2 is going to hit home for a lot of you, maybe even more than this one did. Next week, we're going to get into what I call the aging athlete problem. You could also maybe just call this the aging adult problem. Why does your body feel different in your 40s than it did in your 30s, your 50s to your 40s, your 60s to your 50s? What's actually happening physiologically, the muscle mass, the hormones, the recovery, the metabolism, and why does the approach that worked stop working? Most importantly, what do you actually do about it? Not in a vague, eat better, sleep more way, specifically, practically. If you were my client in that situation, I'll tell you exactly what we're going to do. So that one is going to be essential listening if you're in this age range and you're feeling stuck or frustrated. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so now, wherever you're listening. Just hit the subscribe or follow button so it shows up automatically when these new episodes drop. And if something in today's episode resonated with you, if you heard yourself in any of this, if you've been in that cycle of trying things and starting over and you're ready for something different, I want to invite you to come have a conversation with us. Not a sales pitch, not a hard close, just a conversation where we figure out together whether OTA is the right fit for you and what that would actually look like. You can learn more about the gym at oldetownathlete.com. That's OLDE. I don't know why the city of Arvada spells it that way, but that's just what it is. You can find us on Instagram, or honestly, if you're local, if you're in Arvada, Golden, Westminster, Broomfield, whatever, somewhere in Northwest Denver, just come on by. We're right here in Old Town Arvada, and the gym is usually open. I'm really glad you spent this time with me today. This show really matters a lot to me. This is a culmination of many, many years of coaching and thinking about this. The mission matters to me, and the fact that you're here, that you care enough about your health to spend an hour and a half listening to someone talk about it openly and honestly, that tells me you're already playing the long game, whether you knew it or not. See you in the next episode.